Hello everyone, welcome to stage 4 of the Illbleed tutorial, the Killer Department Store. So a Killer Department Store's gimmick is that it grants you the money that you'd normally get for completing a stage in advance. This doesn't matter for a speedrun. Normally if you get hit by traps it would take away money from you and you need a minimum amount of money to advance through the stage, so if you get hit too much it stalls you out, but since you haven't been spending most of your money on upgrades in the speedrun, then you don't need to worry about it. Anyway, this trolley is the first potential trap that can be, although this is pattern A and it's not present on pattern A. If the trolley is a trap, you're on pattern B, and you do need this head that lies beyond it. It would have made more sense if I wrote the pattern with the first trap to be pattern A, but wacky past me didn't write it like that. So anyway, stick right here to avoid a popcorn scare on the left side, and if it's the middle of these three scares, you're on pattern A, and you pretty much have to guess that. There's no way to, like, feel it out. And then you want this one at the back.
Cool.
You want the yellow candy. Now these next two traps are either one of, like, the piles of jelly beans, I think, or the hand next to it. There can be a fake out here. And unlike the footage, it's actually kind of difficult to get a direct shot on one or the other. I recommend just spam clicking both, it'll be fine. See here I, like, don't tag the correct one and then have to go back in to tag the correct one. That is normal. Just tag both. Stick right here to avoid an enemy encounter, then go into the very similar looking jellies. So first you want the pink jelly on the right. And you want this pink jelly in the middle. That's the one I was trying to tag, but I accidentally hit the orange jelly on the floor. I'm going to get the orange jelly on the ceiling and the red jelly on the floor. At least I think it's orange. Second guessing myself is bad for these sorts of things. Anyway, these next two traps, it's always one can or the other, but you have to walk past both, so unless you know precisely which they are, you end up tagging both anyway, and honestly it's really difficult to hit one and not the other, especially if it's in the back, so you may as well just tag all of these. There's one on either side. So we enter here. Some patterns have the hair here, some do not. There's a trap here, but you need to come in here to pick up this weapon. You need this weapon. If you don't have this weapon, it's very sad. Yeah, so these last four traps, regardless of which one is actually the trap and which one isn't, it kind of plays out the same. So, pattern B. Like I said, this one will start with the trolley, so if you ever trigger the trolley scare, you know, pattern B, straight away. And then we're going to dodge right around the popcorn. This popcorn is on every pattern, but it's also avoidable in every pattern, so it doesn't factor in much. Anyway, so you know perfectly that on pattern B, it's the right and left traps here. But again, it's kind of difficult to aim precisely, so you kind of just tag everything again. It doesn't matter, it's fine. But this time you want the blue candy. Honestly, department store, it's kind of easy to just tag everything in sight and work it out later. And for some of them, they're so clustered that it's genuinely difficult to get it right without doing what I did there and going in twice, illustrating the example perfectly. Still, it is illustrative to know exactly what you're aiming for, even if it, for the most part in this opening section, it kind of doesn't matter. It does for the next hallway, though. Once again, bank right here to avoid an enemy encounter. And now we are aiming for pink jelly in the middle. And the purple on the ceiling. It's very, very close to this one, so don't take a step forward if you hit it. The hitbox for it can be a bit funny. There you go. Took a while there. Then you want the other purple pile on the floor. And the HUD is currently obscuring it, but you want the orange face on the right side here. That is your final scare here for pattern B. And once again, these cans, just you tag all four of them. The particulars kind of don't matter because it's really easy to get the wrong one by accident. But you can't tag everything in the jelly hallway because adrenaline is limited, and as you can see I'm already running quite low. This pattern is the one that lacks the trap by the weapon up here. Otherwise, this end section plays out exactly like pattern A does, except this one comes slightly sooner on the corner. And pattern C, I've skipped the trolley this time because it is also not a thing on pattern C. You see, I'm trying to tag all three and missing because it gets stuck on one. Pattern C has right tongue only and the blue candy. So in theory, you could aim at the first one.
Cool.
And then it is pink jelly beans. I was accurate this time. No other traps for the opening. This has like actually one less trap compared to other patterns. Once again, bank right here. And then you want the orange blob on the floor.
Cool.
And the purple on the ceiling, which can be difficult to target instead of the pink jelly, so again, I just kind of spam click everything. And you want this red face here, and that is the only trap, the only 3 traps in the jelly bit. Again, Pattern C has less traps than the other traps do for this opening segment. This, once again, plays out almost identically, except it's like a shuffle between A and B.
Cool.
You still just tag both, though, because the targeting is prohibitively difficult when they're right next to each other like this. But the trap before the weapon is, in fact, present on Pattern C. Pattern B is the only one that doesn't have it.
Cool. Cool.
And from here, things proceed as normal for a while. We give Hellcake his severed head. And we move the hell on. You can take Hellcake with you, he's a full heal, but you probably don't need him, because you probably bought healing items and what have you. Right, so the meat room. You need to take 3 meats of any type, does not matter which ones. And on Pattern A here, the trap is the left side of both of these sort of like
Cool.
2 lined up piles of meat. So left pile in the front, left pile in the back. I choose to take 3 of the porks here. It doesn't matter which pile of meat you take. Just 3. Just 3 of one of them. And this skull. This skull is consistent across patterns.
Cool.
And on Pattern B, both of the piles in the back are your enemies here. None of the ones in the front.
Cool. Cool.
And also the guaranteed skull.
Cool.
And Pattern C is essentially the inverse of Pattern A. It's both piles on the right side rather than the left.
Cool. Cool. Cool.
Okay, now we get to the cockroaches, and this is kind of difficult to explain. The cockroaches are purely random regardless of your pattern. You need to give them meat, and they might disappear. Give them 1 and then decline, whereupon they'll get mad and punch you in the face and you'll take a bunch of damage. This is why you need healing items. But if you're lucky, they'll go away without you doing anything in one go. They take an unpredictable amount of meat, anywhere from 1 to, like, I've seen 5 at maximum. I don't know what the parameters for this actually are. I've tried to work it out, it seems purely random, and past a certain point it isn't worth giving them more and more meat, trying to make them go away, because you want to enter into this next section with only 1 meat. You can't enter here with 0, so you only fight 1 meat, and that means the subsequent fight is really, really fast. The only way to guarantee this is to enter the cockroaches with 3 meat, and give them 1 each, and hope they go away. I've never seen both of them go away, so maybe there's some more work to be done there, probably. But I don't know. So now we press on to what I have termed in my notes the smelly hallway for some reason. I don't know why I call it that, go with it. So straight away here you want to jump onto this side and run straight across. This avoids a couple of enemy encounters if you're lucky. The positioning seems a bit random. And then for Pattern A, you want to tag this onion. I think these are onions. They look like onions. Are they pumpkins?
Cool.
Leave a comment below. Don't do that. Excuse me. And then tag this pile of indescribable nonsense here. That is also a trap. And once again, get up on the side. You will avoid enemy encounters this way. You want to avoid enemy encounters. And from here, the path is straightforward. Once again, get up on this side. And the final trap here is pineapple.
Cool.
Pattern B kicks off similarly. jump up on the side here. The onion is once again not your friend.
Cool.
Only you could ignore the second pile here. It's this pile that is not your friend on pattern B.
Cool.
And the final pineapple is still present in pattern B.
Cool.
And now for pattern C. Here I've chosen to include something illustrative. Sometimes this doesn't work. The jumping on the side thing, it is not guaranteed. There are circumstances under which it fails. What those circumstances are, I don't know. I feel like it's just random. Sometimes you can get into one extra fight, sometimes you can get into two. This is a 2. This is a worst case scenario and can lose you about a minute. I include this purely just to illustrate that this is a thing that happens sometimes. But you still want to generally follow the pattern because there are more encounters. Onion pumpkin thing, once again.
Cool.
It's the same for every pattern. But you can safely ignore everything else up until the pineapple. As you can see here, the only thing that really moves between patterns in this room are the weird piles of green stuff. Everything else is the same. It's onion and pineapple. Here is a good time to heal up. You will need to be at full health before you do the next zone, because what's coming up is the hardest fight in the game. Okay, so coming into this room, I'm gonna heal up again because this is a different take. Masterful editing, I know. But coming into this room is the hardest fight in the game. So when you reach about here-ish, whip out the horror monitor and tag it. This doesn't, like, stop a cutscene from playing, but it will prevent you from getting knocked down at the start of the fight, and you need crucial initiative to get a good start on this fight. Because the hardest fight in the game are 3 regular enemies. 3 worms. That's it. This is the hardest fight. This is the fight you're most likely to die on. So, same principle of all combat applies here. You need a counter hit to kill, but you can still do damage without a counter hit. Only there's 3 guys on the field. Getting a counter hit like that is kind of hard. You have to bait them into doing it. They kind of function the same way as the giant worm fight with Racial, where if you kind of hang around where they're burrowing, you can bait them into doing an attack and then get a counter hit off on them. Only there are 3 of them. They can all do whatever the hell they like. They can choose not to play the game properly. Their hitboxes are terrible. And they sometimes cover each other's asses, which can make it really, really hard to focus anyone down in particular. So just run around, try and bait, and squeeze a counter hit when you can. There's a lot of luck going on here. This is a chaotic fight. Like, I'm just getting mashed because 3 of them just happened to try and hit me at the same time, and I had very little opportunity to move. And meanwhile, they're not giving me much opportunity to get a counter hit. What is nice, at least, is that the worms individually do not have much health. There's an example of one worm covering for his buddy. Prick. It only really takes 2 good hits in order to put one of them down, as long as the second one is counter hit. The problem is that getting the hit, as illustrated here, proves very challenging sometimes. This is not necessarily an example of stellar fight luck. But honestly, I thought it was better to include footage of this fight going really, really weirdly, because it will go weird more often than it goes well. This is fairly typical. Especially when it's down to 1 guy. Also, pro tip for this fight, try not to have them die this far apart. This is not really in your control, but it speeds things up if they can all die in the same place, because all of the adrenaline orbs they emit have to go to you at the end of the fight, like so. And if they're all far away, it takes more time. So if you can help it, and you probably can't, try and have them die in a pile. And you will probably need to heal up after that fight. If you don't need to heal up after that fight, your fight was probably godlike. As is, that fight will mash, like, 90% of the time it'll mash your health down. So now we proceed up the elevator and to Toy World. The gimmick of Toy World normally is that you need a certain amount of money to enter it, but because we've saved all our money from the run and not spending upgrades, we can just go straight in. So the way we're going to tackle all of these is by sticking to the right inside wall. On pattern A, straight away, tag the first two things you see here. It'll be the ray gun, but again, they're kind of layered on top of each other, so if you want to tag one, you're going to need to tag both, essentially. The second set of robot and ray gun here is another scare. Once again, stick to the outside wall here. This will allow you to avoid any traps that could potentially be on the left side. You can avoid the first hat and cards here. They're not a trap. And I believe it is the cards here, although it is prohibitively difficult to tag just the cards. You basically need to be almost touching it already to tag it successfully. Bank around the corner here, and you want the green plane in the middle of the hallway. Once again, while sticking to the right wall. Always stick to the right wall here. This is the simplest approach I've found for this. And this one you want the TVs. But again, it is easy to accidentally tag the Dreamcast directly in front of your face. So spam clicking is advised. And then it is this, like, baseball combination thing here. Bat, that's the word I'm looking for. Good streamer, doesn't know what the word bat is. And then we tag Cork. Cork is always a trap. He is technically avoidable, but I've never had much luck doing that consistently. And pattern B, once again we're going to stick to the right wall, ignore the first set here, and then double tap here to get both of them. See, normally where two traps overlap you just double tap them because it's too difficult to get a specific one. Here, they're both traps. Ooh, very tricky. We can ignore the next set. And you want to tag the first hat rack here. Because it's the one in front, it's easier to hit this one specifically, although you can still get the one in the back. I recommend spamming, who cares? And once again, you want the one in the back. The cards. And again, green plane in the middle. And as you round the corner, be careful because you want the first trap possible here, which is the Dreamcast. It's kind of difficult to see it here, but there it is. See, there's a Dreamcast. There's an evil Dreamcast in this game. And then you can ignore the first set of balls and tag the second ball. And finally tag Cork. And now for pattern C. The first trap once again becomes your enemy. You can skip the middle set. But now the final set on the right side becomes a trap. And both sets of hat and cards have a trap here, one each. In this case, the first trap is the one in the back, and the second trap will be the one in the front. Now, pattern C here is the only pattern where the green plane trap is actually immediately on the corner rather than being in the middle of the hallway. And it is not avoidable by banking around the corner. I tried. And this particular trap here is now the second Dreamcast rather than the first. It is again quite hard to see amidst all the boxes, but it is past the televisions. The first ball is now a danger to you. And finally, Cork. And for this room, just before the Merry Maze, on patterns A and C, the trap is on the left side of the room. This can be avoided, however, by banking fairly wide right around the room. The hitbox for this trap is quite large. And on pattern B, the converse is true. It's on the right side. And again, see, a little too far to the right will trigger it. Pretty large hitbox. And now the Marie maze itself. I'm varying my pronunciation because it's inconsistent in the game itself. The Marie maze is quite similar to the Banbalo chase in the very first stage, with the caveat that Mary is a lot faster than Banbalo and can take you off guard sometimes. But if you make the same sort of movements in the same sort of way that I'm doing, you will produce the same sort of results. Mary is relatively consistent. She's not a constant presence throughout the maze, she just appears in sort of predetermined locations, and she'll chase you in more or less the same sort of ways. Like, as you advance down this narrow straight, at around here-ish, Mary can appear when you reach the blue thing. If you get a wide line like that, you can go straight without even using the map freeze trick, and the map freeze trick still works here, and it is in fact essential, more or less, to getting through this without getting maimed. Because we grab this blue puzzle piece, and then we have to go back around this corner. Mary will always spawn around this corner. Doing the map freeze trick before you hit the corner allows you to kind of size out where she is, and take a clean line around her without getting caught. You can YOLO that if you're feeling very spicy. I don't recommend it, because if you get caught by Marie in this maze, you have to win the fight to get out of it. You can't run away like you can with Banbalo in the previous stage where this was a thing. So once again, grabbing the yellow piece as you come around this corner, map freeze, assess your line, and pick accordingly. This is just about enough space to make it through. You honestly can't get away with much narrower than that. As the space you need to navigate through gets narrower, you need to map freeze more, because the slightest movement is liable to set an encounter off, and you really want to avoid that. Mary also hits quite hard, so, like, try and avoid encounters with her at all costs. It actually does not take very many hits from her for her to kill you, and you want to avoid that. That's no good. Fortunately, once you get past that dodge, you're safe for the rest of the maze. She won't spawn in on you anymore. Just grab that piece and head to the exit, and slam them all in one by one, because this game has no combine button. The things we miss from Resident Evil. And I will reiterate this once more for the benefit of speed. Hold down the trigger while you are opening the menu to make the menu opening go faster. If you are not doing this, this menu will take, like, literally 15 seconds longer than if you are. And now for Mary Marie's hide and seek. Thankfully, the trap that Mary is hiding in is tied to the trap pattern, so on pattern A, she's just hiding in the keyboard. On pattern B, she's hiding in the fridge. And for pattern C, she's hiding in a pair of cool glasses. And now for the Mary fight itself. The strategy is to immediately run up, get a hit off so she activates her, like, attacking phase, run behind her, and then get a full combo, because the third hit will grant a knockdown. Run behind her, although behind her is going to mean her head, because that's the direction she fell down in. And if it all goes well, you can kill her in 3 clean combos and nothing else. That is a really good take of that fight, and is extremely unlikely to actually happen, because there's a little bit of luck involved with how Mary decides to move, or whether or not she just stabs you in the shins. And again, she does a lot of damage, so you want to avoid that outcome. While you're using the key, now is also a good time to heal. Jump rope. How do I explain how you're supposed to do jump rope? Well, so the jump in this game, especially from standing neutral, is, like, delayed by a full second, so you gotta press way earlier than you think you do. And this speeds up every time you do it. This is something you just need to practice. But what I will note is that when you get to around 8, like this, I just start mashing. Like, 8 especially, just mash. But the final one slows down slightly, so don't mash the last one. Those are my only tips. Mash number 8, don't mash number 9. And now we're on to the boss fight itself, only it's kind of not really a boss fight, it's more of a canned set piece. There's no real way to do this faster, it all plays out pretty much the same from here, because this isn't really a real fight as such. You have to jump up these stairs, which is slightly inconvenient. Don't skip this cutscene too early and accidentally pause the game, like I do every time I do this run. Grab the remote control, it can be hit from a surprisingly far distance, and run down the stairs. Don't jump them, you can actually walk down these without jumping them. The footage is a poor illustration of this. Jumping is slower. Just walk.
and then make the boss run itself into the wall a bunch of times, and that's it, you win the stage. And it's pretty canned from here. The only bonus fact I want to offer is that if you make the boss jump into Eriko, you can in fact kill yourself by doing that, which is very funny, but not very fast. Thank you very much for watching, I hope this was helpful to you, and I'll see you in the next Illbleed tutorial video.